Hillbilly, redneck, and hick are three words that have been used for generations to describe those impoverished in the South in a derogatory manner. Yet, how many people that use those words know the true history of some of these terms? Redneck, originally a term used to describe and belittle farmers, referencing their sunburnt necks, took on a different meaning in the early 20th century when groups of brave union workers chose to stand up for what they thought was right.
Here's a time where these miners are risking their lives doing something really patriotic, standing up for human rights and under terrible, terrible conditions. But the media of the day portrayed the miners often as communists, anything but patriotic. So the miners conduct a very successful, against all odds. They stand against the company, and it's just a riveting story. But when it came down to the United States government sending troops against their own people, the miners could not fight against their own country. These guys were amazing patriots. They laid down their guns and went home.
Workers entered the mines daily in dangerous conditions, supported only by a small flame on their helmet that allowed for them to see the way, as well as other small items that allowed for them to work efficiently and safely for the most part. My great-grandfather braved the mines for years, working as a coal miner. Working in the mines was competitive. Stories of him protecting his water bucket by putting his dentures in it are one of many surrounding the mines in my family.
He was a union organizer, and he started somewhere before 1920, because the family story, it talks about a shootout with the Baldwin thugs, or yellow dogs as your grandpap calls them, going on the bottom level of the house while your great-great-grandmother was upstairs giving birth to my dad. When my dad was little, he and some of his brothers would be sent out into the yard to play. This was really meaning that they were watching for the Baldwins to come while your great-great-grandfather was inside meeting with John L. Lewis, who was the president of the union at that point, and they were working on organizing strategies. He was also at Blair Mountain. Your great-great-grandfather was killed in McDowell County, we believe. He was run off the road, and this was somewhere around 1929. We don't have the exact details. At the time, they worked 6 days a week, 8-hour shifts. Gigi would always walk Granddad down to his truck as he was leaving for work, to tell him goodbye and to tell him that she loved him. These were the last words she would say to him, just in case he never came home. The only time I got to stay home from school without being dead, and even that was not a really good excuse for Grandma to stay home from school, was when the mines was on fire, and I got to stay home until my dad got back home and we knew he was safe.
Mining was not a safe job by far, facing the possibilities of collapses, fires, and explosions. Yet somehow, it was still seen as shocking and ridiculous when miners marched for higher wages and better treatment.
I do remember him being hurt in the mines twice. One when I was real little, so I don't remember very much about it. The next time I was in school, and I didn't know much until he came home from the hospital. The thing I remember the most was that he went to work next day, and he worked in the office so that the company wouldn't have any time off for accidents, because non-accident days were a really big deal. From time to time, the company would give non-accident gifts, things like the little pin that I'm wearing, and also trading stamps like green stamps or plaid stamps. And then you could go exchange these for something that the family would like to have. I will send you a picture of one of our green stamp purchases. I love going to that store. There were just all sorts of bright, shiny objects in it. My dad would go to union meetings on Sunday afternoon. I believe they were once a month, but I'm not real sure on that. And any discussion that we would have as a family, or times that my parents wanted to talk about something important, they would always say, we need to have a union meeting. I do remember my dad going out on strike. These did not scare me at all, because to me it meant my dad would take us back to school after lunch in the back of the pickup. He'd pick up all the neighborhood kids, and we would arrive at the playground, and we were the talk of the school. This was something that was just really fantastic. I do remember my parents talking in hushed tones about the strikes and if it would last so long. I know they had one that lasted over 50 days. I also remember my dad talking about men that crossed the picket line. They were called scabs. And there was always the hushed tones about what terrible things could happen to a scab. Some of the things that I remember that the union got, not all, some were way before my lifetime. One was the medical insurance. We had the best medical insurance around. We never paid for doctor's visits or going to the emergency room or anything like that. I don't remember about medication because there really wasn't much then. Miners also could take their birthday off in honor of John L. Lewis, or they could get paid time and a half. So they'd work a day but get paid for a day and a half if they chose to go to work. Also, they got a day off when somebody was killed in the mines or somebody died in the mines just from natural causes. Of course, they got the 8-hour day, and they also got 2 weeks for vacation. My dad, the union also helped get pay raises, and my dad was making more in the 1960s than I made when I first started teaching school here in West Virginia. My dad also got an AA degree from WVU. I do believe this was from help from the union and the coal company, and it had something to do with engineering. When the miners would get together, especially our family members, they always called it, and talked about mining, they called it loading coal. When the family would go to my Grandma Ryan's, your great-great-grandmother, every Sunday, and there could be around 50 of us at times. There were 5 brothers in the coal company, and they were very close. Now, they didn't always agree with each other, but if somebody from outside the family said something to someone, they would unite as one unit, and they were a force to be dealt with, believe me. And I would have never wanted to go on the wrong side of it.
Even though miners of all different areas have worked as a backbone in this country, they fail to receive the recognition that they deserve. This has been a systematic issue since the profession itself has existed, and while miners had both successful and unsuccessful protests and marches for better wages, healthcare, days off, etc., with many signature red bandanas, not many people know anything about the history of mining or the protests. For such a historical backbone, they've gotten no recognition. Instead, these miners were labeled as communists, to quote Steve Bales, anything but patriotic. Redneck is not an insult, not in my book, and it shouldn't be one in yours either.